Identity is formed through an encounter with difference. For second-generation immigrants, the differences between their life at home and their public life with society are almost contradictory. When these two lives collide, the consequent conflict can only be resolved with a choice between the two. These decisions mold their unique identity, representing a lifelong struggle to reach a state of hybridity, of spiritual and cultural equilibrium.
The dichotomy one feels having two names is representative of what it means to be the child of immigrants.
In this country, the children decide. He wants to keep Gogol and not Nikhil as his good name. Fine, no big deal.
With the president named Jimmy, there is nothing we can do. As long as our kid is happy.
He hates that his name is both absurd and obscure, that it has nothing to do with who he is, that it is neither Indian nor American, but of all things Russian. He hates having to live with it, a pet name turned good name, day after day, second after second.
I've been thinking a lot about my name. Gogol's fine on my high school diploma, but can you mention Gogol on a resume or a credit card after that?
She has the gift of accepting her life. As he comes to know her, he realizes that she has never wished she were anyone other than herself, raised in any other place, in any other way. This, in his opinion, is the biggest difference between them, a thing far more foreign to him than the beautiful house she'd grown up in, her education at private schools. In addition, he is continually amazed by how much Maxine emulates her parents, how much she respects their tastes and their ways. At the dinner table, she argues with them about books and paintings and people they know in common, the way one might argue with a friend. There is none of the exasperation he feels with his own parents, no sense of obligation. Unlike his parents, they pressure her to do nothing, and yet she lives faithfully, happily at their side.
You know, he is willing to go on vacation with someone else's parents, but not to see his own.
The idea of returning year after year to a single place appeals to Gogol deeply. Yet he cannot picture his family occupying a house like this, playing board games on rainy afternoons, watching shooting stars at night, all their relatives gathered neatly on a strip of sand. It is an impulse his parents have never felt, this need to be so far from things. They would have felt lonely in this setting, remarking that they were the only Indians.
But your parents want you to marry a nice Indian girl.
I don't care what they want. This is what I want.
The loss of a part of their heritage, a piece which they can never again encounter, inspires a new sense of appreciation in second-generation immigrants. He knows now the guilt that his parents carried inside, of being able to do nothing when their parents had died in India, of arriving weeks, sometimes months later, when there was nothing left to do.
You remember Moshini Majumdar?
Their contact until that night had been artificial, imposed, something like his relationship to his cousins in India, but lacking even the justification of blood ties. Until they had met that night, he had never seen her outside of the context of her family, or she his. He decides that it is her very familiarity that makes him curious about her. They marry within a year, at a DoubleTree hotel in New Jersey, close to the suburb where her parents live. It's not the type of wedding either of them really wants. They would have preferred a sit-down dinner, jazz played during the reception, black and white photographs, keeping things small. But their parents insist on inviting close to 300 people and serving Indian food, and providing easy parking for all the guests. Gogol and Mushmi agree that it's better to give in to these expectations than to put up a fight. It's what they deserve, they joke, for having listened to their mothers and for getting together in the first place. And the fact that they are united in their resignation makes the consequences somewhat bearable. They have not considered it their duty to stay married, as the Bengalis of Ashoke and Ashima's generation do. They are not willing to accept, to adjust, to settle for something less than their ideal of happiness. That pressure has given way, in the case of the subsequent generation, to American common sense. A year later, the shock has worn off, but a sense of failure and shame persists, deep and abiding. And yet, he can't really blame her. They had both acted on the same impulse. That was their mistake. They had both sought comfort in each other and in their shared world, perhaps for the sake of novelty, or out of the fear that that world was slowly dying. As the hours of the evening pass, he will grow distracted, anxious to return to his room, to be alone, to read the book he had once forsaken, has abandoned until now. Until moments ago, it was destined to disappear from his life altogether, but he has salvaged it by chance, as his father was pulled from the crushed train 40 years ago. Second-generation immigrants face a continual conflict of allegiance. Their choices in situations where their ethnic culture clashes with their native environment shape their personal sense of who they are. The result is not a blending, but a consolidation of culture, in which some aspects of their lives pay homage to their ethnic heritage, while others compromise that culture for the sake of belonging to the society in which they live.